Hey guys, tonight we're diving into why the Inca used urine as medicine. The shocking truth about ancient medicine, and no, not cute. You probably won't last 10 minutes in barley before crying or getting fined. It's weird, it's wild. Imagine you're not in your comfy room right now, but instead you're up 12,000 feet in the Andes. The air is so thin your lungs feel like two sad little raisins, and breathing is a risk. The sun is a judgmental stage light. The mountain range is sharp, purple-gray teeth on the horizon, and you have committed the great evil of antiquity tourism. You tripped over a rock. Now, your foot looks more like an angry, swollen eggplant someone tried to mail as a package instead of a foot. You may find yourself needing to undress in front of a goat at some time. This is not a drill. So, before we get too cozy, make sure to take a second to like the video and subscribe, but only if you actually enjoy what I do here. Post your location and your local time in the comments. I'm curious who's awake at 3 a.m. thinking about ancient people's hygiene flaws. It will be nice if you are faking working and watching this. We've all been there. Get a snack, mute mum, and let's get weird? You're hobbling. It is more of a painful, rhythmic lurch, like you're doing a TikTok dance that has gone horribly, horribly wrong. The path is paved in stone, rough and unfriendly. Probably has never been repaved. A flash of color and muscle darts past. A chasca, one of the Empire's fastest messengers delivering a message on a knotted string called a quipu. He doesn't even glance at your pathetic, shuffling form. He has royal news to share, and tomorrow he'll reach the people 150 miles away. Unlike the rest of the world, you are on your way to visit a festering wound and a healer who believes bedside manner is a waste of good oxygen. At long last, you arrive at a small settlement, a collection of stone huts, topped with thatched roofs looking like hairy mushrooms growing on the mountainside. Everyone stops and stares. You're not from around here. Your clothes are not right, your face is a bit sour, and you smell like panic and spoiled tourist. A child points to your foot, which has taken on an unusual color, and says something to the mother in Quechua that you don't understand. She hushes him, but not before giving you a look that says, "Yikes, that is going to have to come off." They are dragging you with little pity to the healer's hut. It's dark inside, the only light coming from the doorway. A pungent odor wafts through the air. The dried spices of cooking, wood smoke, something sharp, salty, a threat. It smells like the public toilet of a music festival with a touch of an ancient legend. While sitting on a rough llama wool blanket, your sandals stick to the floor, which has surely endured the goat pee. The healer, the Hampakameak, enters. He's not a kindly older man with a twinkle in his eye. He has the serious, hard stare of a DMV employee who just found a mistake on your application. He leans over, prodding your injured foot as much to annoy you as to help. He doesn't react. He mutters a few words. A helper rushes out, then returns after a moment carrying a clay pot. This is it. The moment of truth. The ancient wisdom. The cure. You expect some charm or herbs with magic or a chant. The assistant unplugs the pot, but you do not expect the smell that comes from it. It's ammonia, eye-watering, sinus-clearing, weaponized ammonia. The type your ancestors would say to abort the mission. The healer takes the pot, and with no words pours it over your open wound. It's urine, but it's not just any urine. Oh no, that would be too simple. This is aged urine, also known as matcha, that has been left to ferment in a pot for days and even weeks. Inca blocks used stale urine as a powerful antiseptic, according to belief. The reasoning, ammonia being an excellent cleanser, made sense in a pre-germ theory world. An ancient medical text listed urine as urea, which breaks down into ammonia. It would have destroyed bacteria long before the scientists even knew about them. It was also used as a shampoo to stop balding, so you have to wonder if every Inca noble secretly smelled like a subway station. You're not thinking about the chemistry, though. You're just thinking about the intense, liquid fire pain that is now filling your whole lower leg. You're screaming. The look on the healer's face doesn't change. It shows that your agony is irritating, but it's believed necessary. There is still debate among historians about whether the Inca had a sophisticated, protochemical understanding of ammonia's properties, or whether their medical development was just one long, terrifying series of trial-and-error experiments. One day, some guy called Pakakuti accidentally urinated on a cut, and it healed up so much faster than usual that a whole new branch of medicine was born. Honestly, who cares? At this moment, you are being sprayed with fermented human manure, and all you can think of is getting home. The stinging finally subsides into a dull, throbbing burn. The healer nods, satisfied. Treatment complete. He says something like, "Don't next time be such a clumsy idiot," and waves you out of there. Welcome to Incan healthcare. Your copay is your dignity. Your foot is no longer a foot. It's a public nuisance, a conversation piece, a local attraction. You know that fermented urine treatment they gave you? The one you're sure they provide the newbies with as a joke? It really did nothing except make your legs smell like rotting flesh. The swelling has moved up to your ankle, the skin is stretched so tight, it shines, and it is hot enough to cook a potato. The fermented pea poultice mentioned in the brochure was a scam. Upon seeing your leg, which is now a color that lawyers might call grounds for a lawsuit, the village elder decides this is above the pay grade of the local peacelinger. You need a specialist, a diviner. You're not walking there. Two sturdy villagers, who look overly disappointed at their task, put you on a coarse wool blanket and carry you just like a sack of cursed potatoes to another hut on the village periphery. This one feels different. Dust and dried chili pepper have created a tremendous amount of smoke in the Israelis' air, with a smell reminiscent of copper. The walls are filled with pouches of herbs, odd bundles of feathers, and a disturbing number of small polished skulls that really hope belong to animals. In the corner, there's a rustling sound. You look into the dark and see a stone enclosure where at least a dozen guinea pigs are kept. They are eating grass and squeaking with joy. For one brief moment, their cute, fuzzy little faces are the most comforting thing you have seen all day. Hold that thought. The new healer, the Kakoi, enters. This isn't the grumpy pragmatist from before. This woman is terrifying. Her face is covered in wrinkles. Her eyes are dark and intense. Her necklace looks like some jaguar teeth. She doesn't ask you what's wrong. She already knows you're a mess. She walks around you, muttering under her breath. Now and then, she sniffs the air around your infected leg like it's spoiled milk. It feels like you are not being treated like a patient, but like a piece of evidence. After a moment of intense inspection, she points an elongated bony finger at the guinea pig cage. A youth who seems to have witnessed far too much. Her assistant reaches in and pulls one out. It's a plump, healthy-looking black one. It is a well-known historical fact that the Incas performed the coca ritual, in which a guinea pig, or kiwi, as they call it, was used to determine the source of an illness. The assistant hands over the squeaking, trembling animal to you. The healer takes it, her grip firm and practiced, and then she starts rubbing it on you. Yes, she is rubbing a live guinea pig all over your body. It's warm, and you feel its tiny heart thumping rapidly against your skin. The woman initiates at your head, her chant ringing in a low monotone. She goes down slowly, pressing the warm, vibrating, terrified body of the tiny little rodent against your chest, your arms, and your throbbing, monstrous leg. The guinea pig lets out a few pathetic squeaks. It stares at you with its tiny, black, bead-shaped eyes as if to say, "This is an awful HR policy, and I will be speaking to my union rep." You're so caught up in the sheer weight of weirdness that you almost forget the agony in your foot. The healer is not pulling your energy. The healer believes the guinea pig is absorbing the spiritual essence of your ailment, taking on your sickness so she can see it. It's like a spiritual reboot by switching it off and on. After she's rubbed every inch of your body in it, she holds up the traumatized fur potato. The chanting stops. The hut is silent, bar the panicky breathing of a guinea pig. She quickly twists her wrists, and this breaks its neck with a sickening crunch. It's over in a second. A final, pathetic squeak, and it goes limp. You flinch so hard you almost fall over. The assistant brings over a sharp obsidian knife. What happens next is messy. She places the dead animal on a special cloth and opens it from the throat to its stomach. She separates the ribs and uses the same concentration as a bomb detection expert to begin inspecting the guts. The lady walks over to the upside-down view of the Gotham canvas. She places her hands on a piece of the city. She pokes at the liver. She examines the lungs. She traces the path of the intestines with her finger. "That's it," she says, gesturing towards the darkened area on the animal's liver. She points towards its lungs, noticing something speckled there. This wasn't just random. Central to the diagnosis was the belief that the organs of the guinea pig would reflect the patient's own spiritual sickness. A spot on the liver indicated a liver problem or an angry ancestor. Having issues with your lungs suggests a problem with the winds or mountain spirits. These were no ordinary guinea pigs. Did you know that? They were often bred for ceremonial usage, sometimes in solid or specific colors, like black or white, which were considered more effective for divination. Especially bred, organic, gluten-free victim has given a medical diagnosis to you. The healer finishes her grim inspection. She looks up at you, her eyes boring into yours. The verdict is not an infection. It's not a broken bone. The deceased rodent's discolored organs suggest that your problem is a waka you have spurned in the past. Or maybe you angered a mountain spirit, an APU. Perhaps it's because your llama has been eating their prize-winning potatoes that your neighbor cursed you. Physical illness is merely the last stage of a spiritual sickness. Historians continue to debate whether the Incan shaman was searching for some form of physiological identity. A guinea pig with a matching tumor on its organ, say, or whether it was simply a ruse with no medical basis. The funniest argument is that scholars have debated whether the guinea pig was a vessel for spirits or was merely a little furry MRI. This is an image that I cannot unsee. The healer wipes her bloody hands on a cloth. She informs the old lady that it is not the body but the soul that is at fault. The urine was useless because you can't pee on a ghost. The wound is merely a doorway for the evil spirit to make its entrance. And to fix it? Well, it's going to involve a whole lot more than a dead guinea pig. You glance at your foot and back at the horrible remains on the ground. Your future is now inside the dead rat's gut. Things are not looking up. So the verdict is in. You have managed to offend a rock, mountain, or your neighbor's constantly angry llama. The guinea pig didn't lie. After having finished with the little furry martyr, the healer turns back to you with an expression that is one part spiritual authority and one part, "This is going to be so much paperwork." The pain in your foot, having been temporarily forgotten during the chaos of the ritual autopsy, returns. Your mouth lets out a low groan that you can't control as this pain hits your chest. Your foot is now speaking in tongues. The healer notices. With a quick nod, she gestures to her assistant, who immediately rushes over to one of the many unknown sacks on the wall. He returns with a small, woven bag and hands it to you. You open it. Inside are dried, greenish-brown leaves. Their appearance makes them look like they are from the bottom of a lawnmower bag. However, they smell fresh, earthy, and sweet. The healer pretends to chew on a wad of cells by putting it in her cheek. You look at her, then at the leaves, and then at your foot, a pulsating mass the size and color of a cursed plum. At this point, what have you got to lose? Your dignity is already a distant memory. You grab a handful of the leaves. They are dry and fragile like a cracker, yet dusty on the palms. Following her example, you stuff them into your mouth. The taste is not great. It tastes bitter and grassy, a vivid shade of green similar to a hedge. You are sure you're going to spit it out. However, when the healer gives you a look that could curdle milk, you force yourself to chew. It's an awkward, mulch-like wad in your cheek. This is officially the worst salad you've ever had. After that, the assistant offers you a small piece of an object that resembles a chalky stick. Lipta is a small block of rock-hard quinoa ash or mineral lime. He signals for you to sample a small amount and then put it in with the ball of leaves in your mouth. You obey. As alkaline ash meets the leaves and saliva, a change occurs a moment later. A chemical reaction begins. A tingly numbness begins to spread over your tongue and gums like an organic dose of Novocaine. It's not unpleasant. The bitterness goes away and is replaced by a sweet, minty flavor. The numbness spreads to your cheek, then your whole jaw. You feel like you have just left the dentist. And then the real magic starts. Gradual overall relaxation begins at your feet and proceeds upward through your legs. The burning, stabbing pains fade into a dull ache. The fire alarm of your nervous system has been down-regulated to a soft, pulsing hum. Within 10 minutes, the pain is background noise. You may still feel the pressure, the tightness of the swelling, but the hurt is gone. As chemical indifference wrapped it in a thick, fluffy blanket, it has slowly been pushed to the back of the mind. But that's not all. A warm, pleasant buzz spreads through your chest. Seems thicker, high-altitude air feels easier to breathe. Since you fell, the heavy panic that gripped you has vanished, leaving you with a calm and curious focus. You feel good, actually good, energetic even. You look at the healer, who's preparing even more terrifying ritual objects, and you slowly blink your face in comprehension at her. Go. Okay, I get it now. Star. Coca leaves are the essence of Inca life, medicine, and spirituality. Eating coca leaves for the Andean people was as normal for them as having our morning coffee. This substance was a gentle stimulant that increased stamina to a significant degree, decreased hunger and thirst, and, most importantly, completely prevented altitude sickness. You couldn't build an empire at 12,000 feet without it. Messengers, soldiers, farmers, everyone chewed it. It wasn't just a drug people used to party. It was a biological necessity. The gods bestowed this upon us. It made life possible in impossible surroundings. But it was so much more than just ancient Gatorade. Here's the fun fact. The best coca leaves were set aside for the nobles and the gods. Priests used to burn coca leaves as offerings to the sun god Inti and earth mother Pachamama. They also made predictions by examining the patterns caused by the smoke and ash. It was a direct line to the cosmos. Each time you munched on it, you were involved in a ritualistic act, not just a buzz. You were communing with the divine. While you are checking out your face and your pain-free foot, you are also in a sort of religious affair. No pressure. You look around the village. Those men and women often exhibit a bulge on one side of the cheek, telltale signs of a chichado, a coca wad. Their appearance is crooked, like a chipmunk's. Civilization today looks constantly productive, like it has been on a low-grade edible amphetamine for the past 100 years. And now you're one of them. You have an uncontrollable urge to build a stone wall that's a perfect fit or run to the next town. Of course, the whole system was tightly controlled. The government was the sole producer and distributor of coca. Historians continue to debate whether this state control of coca was an act of kindness and social welfare, providing an essential resource to working people, or a nefarious instrument of imperial power. Was the Sapa Inca providing free uppers to improve his people's lives? Or was he ensuring they had the energy to fulfill crushingly high labor tax quota without a peep? The disagreement can be summed up as benevolent God King versus ancient CEO trying to maximize productivity. Given the extreme amount of backbreaking work required to run the empire, probably a very cynical yes. You're not taking the social or economic consequences into account just now. You're just vibing. The world seems a little brighter. The llama wool blanket is a little softer, and encountering a nasty monster in the mountains is no longer a death sentence, but a team-building exercise. The coca has done its job perfectly. It has calmed you, powered you, and made you easy and joyful. You're pain-free, a little euphoric, and ready for anything. And that's good because what comes next involves a drill. The coca leaves have you feeling like $1,000,000, or at least like you haven't just had a guinea pig sacrificed on your behalf. The pain in your foot is a distant, muffled drumbeat, and you're filled with a serene, chemically induced confidence. You think, okay, I can handle this. A few more chants, maybe a weird herbal tea, and I'll be on my way. You are so wrong. The healer, the kakoi, hasn't been idle while you've been blissing out on ancient alkaloids. She's been laying out a new set of tools on a clean cloth. And these are not friendly tools. There's a small, sharp knife made of obsidian. Its black volcanic glass edge looking like a sliver of frozen night. There are bronze tweezers and probes. There are cotton pads and more of those mysterious herbal pouches. And then there's the main event. It's a T-shaped object, about the size of your hand, made of bronze. The top is a handle, and the bottom is a short, cylindrical blade with a serrated, circular edge. It looks like a medieval cookie cutter designed by a serial killer. It's a tumi, a ceremonial knife. But this one isn't for ceremonies. It's a trepanation drill. Your pleasant coca buzz evaporates. The blood drains from your numb face. You look from the drill to the healer, then to your foot, then back to the drill. You try to communicate with your eyes. A frantic, universal message of, nope, 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 abort. We are not doing this. The healer seems to misunderstand your panic as excitement. She points not at your swollen, cursed foot, but at your head. Your head. You're confused. The guinea pig said the problem was a spiritual intrusion through your foot. But the healer explains, through a combination of gestures and stern-sounding Quechua, that the evil spirit, having entered through the wound, has now traveled up your body and is trapped inside your skull. It's bouncing around in there, causing pressure, confusion, and probably giving you a killer headache you hadn't even noticed because your foot was stealing the show. The only way to let the evil spirit out is to, naturally, cut a hole in your head. It's spiritual venting. You have to open a window in your skull to let the bad vibes out. This logic is, in its own terrifying way, entirely consistent. You start to protest, to shake your head, to point frantically at your foot. But the two villagers who carried you here suddenly look a lot more like security guards. They gently but firmly push you into a sitting position, your back against the stone wall. The assistant comes over and offers you another, much larger wad of coca leaves. He gestures for you to chew. Vigorously. This is your anesthesia. You're the only anesthesia. Chew like your life depends on it, because it literally does. As you frantically masticate your new dose of leafy oblivion, the healer gets to work. This is not a rushed, brutal hack job. It's a careful, methodical procedure. First, she takes a razor and shaves a patch of hair from your scalp. Then she paints the area with an iodine-like substance, probably some herbal antiseptic. So far, so clinical. Then, she picks up the tumi. This is the mainstream historical fact. The Inca were masters of trepanation, the surgical procedure of drilling a hole into the human skull. Archaeologists have found thousands of skulls from the Incan Empire and its predecessors bearing the telltale marks of these operations. It was performed to treat head injuries, relieve cranial pressure, and yes, to release evil spirits. They weren't just hacking away unthinkingly. They knew exactly where to cut to avoid the major arteries and sinuses of the skull. She places the circular blade against your scalp and begins to scrape. Not drill, not yet. First, she has to scrape away the scalp and the layer of tissue covering the bone. The coca has made the pain a distant, abstract concept, but you can feel the pressure, the horrifying sensation of a sharp tool digging into your head. It's a sound you feel in your teeth, a deep, resonant scraping. You clench your jaw, chewing on the coca leaves as if they're the only thing tethering you to reality. Once the bone is exposed, she switches her grip. She begins to turn the tumi, not spinning it like a modern drill, but making small, careful, back-and-forth rotating motions. It's less drilling and more manual scraping in a circle. Tiny fragments of bone dust start to accumulate around the edge of the instrument. It's a slow, agonizing process. The sound is the worst part. A gritty, crunching noise that seems to be happening inside your own brain. You can feel the vibration through your entire skeleton. The coca is working overtime, keeping the raw panic at bay, but you are acutely, vividly aware that a woman is currently carving a window into your skull with a bronze hand tool. Here's the quirky tidbit. The survival rates were shockingly high. We're talking 80 to 90% in the late Incan period. Archaeologists know this because they found hundreds of skulls with clear signs of healing and bone regrowth around the trepanation hole. Some skulls even show evidence of multiple successful surgeries. There are skulls out there with 2, 3, even 5 healed holes in them. It's like some people were frequent flyers at the skull drilling clinic. Oh, there goes QC, getting another evil spirit let out. It's his third one this year. He really needs to stop offending so many rocks. The process feels like it takes an eternity. You drift in and out of a numb, coca-fueled haze. The scraping sound becomes the soundtrack to the universe. Then, there's a subtle change in pressure, a slight give. The healer has broken through the inner table of the skull. She's in. She carefully works the tool to lift the circular piece of bone out. It's a perfect, coin-sized disc of your own skull. She holds it up triumphantly before placing it on the cloth. The spirit door is officially open. Historians still argue whether the primary motivation for trepanation was medical or magical. Were they brilliant protoneurosurgeons relieving hematomas and intracranial pressure from battlefield injuries? Or were they shamans performing a purely ritualistic act? The fact that they performed it for both observable head wounds and invisible spiritual maladies suggests the answer is, frustratingly, both. They didn't see a difference between the physical and the spiritual. A hole in the head fixed both a skull fracture and a bad attitude. The debate feels absurd while you're sitting there with a fresh hole in your cranium, feeling a gentle mountain breeze on your dura mater. The healer doesn't do anything else. She doesn't poke around in there. The goal wasn't to operate on the brain. It was to open the door. She covers the hole with a piece of cotton, then places a thin plate of gold or even a piece of a calabash gourd over the opening before bandaging your head tightly. The gold wasn't just bling. It was thought to have protective properties. Congratulations, you now have a permanent, state-mandated skylight. And probably a hell of a story to tell if you survive the infection. You sit there, dazed, head wrapped, foot throbbing, and wonder what other brilliant medical procedures they have in store for you. You now have a hole in your head. Think about that, a genuine, authorized, medically accepted hole. You can feel a kind of dull thudding below your belt, which the coca leaves are trying to put out, but they can't quite manage it. You feel dizzy and a bit lost. Plus, there's a vegetable gourd fastened to your head, kind of like a helmet. The evil spirit might have been banished on paper, but your foot is still swollen and purple, and you're beginning to think that Incan healthcare is just a series of traumatic distractions. You showed up with an ankle injury, and now you're getting a lobotomy. This is not progress. The healer, however, seems pleased with her work. She has dealt with the cranial squatter who is causing a crisis, but not the root cause. Remember, you angered a god, or a rock, or a river. The guinea pig was clear on that. Making a hole in your skull was done for damage control, and it didn't really apologize to the offended. For that, she needs to go to the source. She needs to have a little chat with the spirit world. And you can't just text a mountain god. You need to call. And the reception up here is terrible. As her assistant gets the next stage of your treatment ready, he pulls out a bowl made of deep, dark ceramic and a wooden mortar and pestle. He empties 2 crucial ingredients into the mortar from yet another one of those endlessly mysterious pouches. The Banisteriopsis copy is the shredded bark of a thick vine or plant stem. The second is a set of leaves from a plant called Psychotria viridis. He's banging them together, smashing the cocoa into pulp. You can see your head pulsing together with your heartbeat. It has a bitter, grassy scent, reminiscent of a salad that has betrayed you. The mash is then scooped into the bowl, and water is added. With her eyes closed and her lips forming a silent chant, the healer begins to stir. She stirs for hours, moving slowly and with intent. The water gets muddy and turns brown like the water in a muddy ditch. It does not look appetizing. It does not look sanitary. It is something you would dare your buddy to drink for $20, only to regret it instantly. A sickening solution is undoubtedly used in the healing process, and you assume you are the next to partake of it. You brace yourself, but the healer doesn't offer you the bowl. She sets it down, takes a deep breath, and raises it to her lips. She drinks. She drinks everything. A thick, gritty sludge that would probably make a seasoned frat boy gag. The complete bowl is drained by the lady with an intense and determined look. After that, she sits down on a llama wool rug, crosses her legs, and closes her eyes, and waits. You have just witnessed the preparation of ayahuasca. It is a well-known historical fact that the use of this potent psychoactive drink has been an essential element of shamanism in the Andes and in the Amazon basin for thousands of years. Blended, these plants produce some of the most potent, deep, and frightening images. The plant has harmaline, a MAO inhibitor, while the leaves contain DMT, a powerful psychedelic. Separately, they do very little. Together, they open a door to another reality. And your healer just walked right through it. For a few minutes, nothing happens. The healer sits as still as a statue. The only things I hear are the remaining guinea pigs squeaking now, and a serious conversation must be going on involving resignation or forming a union. The wind is whistling outside the hut. When you decide that this is some weird ritual, her breathing changes. It becomes deeper, faster. Her eyelids flutter. A low moan escapes her lips. Her hands begin to tremble. She's gone. She's no longer in the hut with you. She is, in her mind, soaring through the spirit world. Get this, shamans consuming ayahuasca never referred to their experience as a trip or a hallucination. To them, it was a literal journey. They thought that their spirit leaves its body and travels to the Ukupasha, the underworld, or Hananpasha, the upper world. They were not seeing things, and were actually meeting gods, ancestors, and spirits. People would explain that you have to fly like a condor, swim through underground rivers like a snake, and fight evil demons in light jungles. Your healer has gone on a business trip for today to another dimension to figure out your swollen foot. It's the most extreme imaginable version of a consultation. While you are left stranded, a shaman who shifts dimensions and her tired-looking teenage helper. It's awkward. The healer begins rocking back and forth, mumbling to himself in an unknown language. Her voice is high-pitched at times and also emits low grunts at other times. She's not talking to anyone in the room. She is currently enjoying an intense conversation with invisible folks. She bends her back at some point and hisses like a trapped cat. The assistant doesn't even flinch. He's seen this before. This is just Tuesday for him. You sense that you're a third wheel on what feels like an odd, very psychedelic date. You are wholly irrelevant to the process that has begun. You are, nonetheless, the cause of it all. You are the topic of the discussion, but not invited to attend. You're just another guy with a hole in his head and an eggplant foot waiting in the cosmic lobby. Historians are unsure whether shamans were really speaking to spirits, experiencing only neurological effects of strong chemicals, or a combination of the two. Were their visions actual mystical insights, or was the brain's pattern recognition software merely going into overdrive to create order from psychedelic disorder? It's the ultimate showdown of materialists versus spiritualists, and frankly, you don't care. You want to know if you're going to lose your foot. You hope she asks the right spirit. You hope she doesn't start chatting with a jaguar god and forget she was there to see a plant. Oh, the clumsy tourist. I almost forgot. Suddenly, the healer's body goes rigid. She lets out a loud gasp, and her eyes snap open. They appear to lack focus, with pupils dilated and staring into the distance. Afterward, they gradually regain focus, and she stares straight at you. She seems tired, like she just ran a marathon through another dimension. She also looks like she has an answer. The journey is over. The transdimensional diagnostic is complete. As she leans in and rasps, she tells you what she learned on the other side. And judging by her grim expression, it is not good news. The healer's pupils are back to this dimension, but they look as if they have seen things. Horrible, trippy, non-Euclidean things. She appears to be shaky and sweating, as if she just returned from an unpleasant meeting in the spirit world. She breathes in deep, a broken breath, and then begins to speak with a low, gravelly hum. The ayahuasca journey was a success. She found the source of your problem, and it's exactly what she suspected, only worse. When you tripped on that rock, it was no ordinary rock. It was a waka, an object imbued with the spirit of the mountain. You didn't just stumble. You kicked a powerful god in the shin, a very petty one. The spirit was furious. It grabbed onto you, came through the cut in your foot, and lodged itself in your head, causing all sorts of problems in the universe. The trepanation provided an exit, but it did not satisfy the god. The god is still angry. Your swollen foot isn't an infection. It's a punishment from God. It is a sign from God. And the only way to fix it is surgery. A different kind of surgery. Your heart sinks. The word surgery isn't something you really want to hear in a dark, smoky hut that relies mainly on a dead mouse to diagnose issues. The healer says the spirit's portal, your foot wound, has been infected. It's a festering gateway of spiritual decay. The flesh itself is now an insult to the mountain god. It has to be cut away, all of it. You need to remove the dead or close to dead tissue, and any other tissue that might merely look suspicious, to clean the wound and show the APU that you are genuinely sorry for your mistake. You look down and see your foot generating low-level heat, as if it's been personally victimizing you. Just the thought of some fiddling with it with a sharp piece of volcanic glass will give you the vapors. You begin to shake your head, mumble something about trying another urine poultice, but the healer silences you with a glare. This is not a negotiation. So here you go again. You're lying on the floor, propped up against the wall. The two large villagers are back, and they aren't just here for morale support. One kneels by your shoulders, the other by your hips. Their job is to hold you down. This is not a good sign. The assistant arrives not this time with coca leaves, but with a clay jug filled with thick, frothy, milky liquid. It smells faintly of corn and fermentation. It's chicha, a potent corn beer. He gestures for you to drink a lot. This is your new anesthetic. Plan A was coca leaves. Plan B is to get you blackout drunk. The Incas had a pretty cool pain management system. They would give you coca leaves, which helped to keep you conscious and focused. Then, they would give you a strong alcoholic drink, which made you not care. It's the ancient equivalent of downing shots of espresso and tequila before you get a tattoo in a back alley. It's a terrible idea, but it's the only one they've got. You drink the chicha. It's got a sour and pungent taste and has the texture of runny oatmeal. It burns on the way down. You drink more and more. The room starts to tilt. The edges of your vision get fuzzy. The healer's face swims in and out of focus. The coca in your cheek still gives a strange energy buzz, but it's competing with a powerful wave of drunken sleepyhead. You're disconnected and floaty, but also wired and wasted, leaving you in an unbelievable contradictory state and very stupid. The healer is ready. She has her obsidian knife sterilized in a flame. She has bronze forceps to pull away the tissue. She has pads of clean, raw cotton to soak up the blood. Incan surgeons were able to do advanced procedures like amputations and cut wounds with a surprisingly sophisticated set of tools. They thought cleanliness was vital because it was spiritual, not because of microbes and viruses. Antiseptic, such as fermented gas, was used to wash the wound and bandaged with clean material. The healer takes your foot in her hand. With the haze of chicha and coca, you find yourself watching as if it's happening to someone else. She makes the first cut. You still sense it, even with the chemical cocktail going through you. It's not the sharp, screaming pain from before. It's a deep, searing, tearing sensation. You make a roar like an animal. You try to pull away, but they hold you. The assistant shoves the chicha jug back in your face. Drink more, his eyes say. Forget this is happening. She works quickly, her hands steady and sure. She removes the damaged skin around the wound that looks swollen. The sharpness of the obsidian blade is horrifying enough to part the skin and muscle. There's a lot of blood. The assistant applies cotton pads to the worst of the bleeding, his face set in grim concentration. You are jerking, hollering, and maybe even crying. But it all feels kind of far away, as if you are watching a movie. A movie where you are the star, and it is a very loud, very violent movie. Here's a fun and possibly badass fact. Some patients were expected to put up with this in silence. Getting the patient drunk would have been common if they were warriors or of high status, showing that pain is weakness. They should chew their coca, gaze into space, and receive it, they were told. It was a test of their strength and spirit. You, a soft 21st century tourist, have failed this test spectacularly. You are screaming like a fire alarm. The entire thing takes 10 minutes, yet it feels like forever. Finally, the healer puts down her knife. She has made a crater on the side of your foot that has a sickening amount of tissue. The wound is raw, bloody, but clean. She redoes the wash with a different herbal mixture and starts packing it with what looks like ground-up leaves and bark with a poultice. Historians still dispute the exact recipes for these herb mixtures, as they were best-kept secrets handed down in speech. Was there a specific plant with antibiotic properties? Was it a concoction to satisfy the spirits? Or the Incan equivalent of neosporin? There are traces of substances resembling balsam and other resins in mummy dressings, though we're not sure what they are. She wraps your foot in clean, tight bandages. The surgery is over. You are lying on the ground, panting, sweaty, and stained with spilt chicha. You are extremely intoxicated and disfigured, with a hole in your head. But you're alive. The healer gives a satisfied nod. The physical corruption has been removed. The apology to the mountain god is complete. There's only one thing left for you to do: heal, and never kick a sacred rock again. The last thing you hear is guinea pigs squeaking, and then nothing but a painful, deeply confused unconsciousness. You wake up tasting regret and stale corned beer. Your foot is swollen and throbbing with pain. It feels like it has its own universe. And your head is also banging like you had a jam session. The world slowly comes back into focus, through the smoky haze of a hut that's not the healer's. You're in a different building now. It's longer, more communal. There are others here like you. They lay on blankets, looking just as miserable. Welcome to the Incan Public Hospital, or as close as you can get, the Tampu. These were not hospitals as we think of them, but rather inns or storehouses found along the lengthy Inca road system. When you fell ill or were injured and were traveling or working for the state, you were taken to the nearest hospital. It's here you're supposed to recover. A woman with a friendly yet tired face brings you hot quinoa soup in a bowl and a fresh wad of coca leaves. The coca leaf is not just a nice party trick anymore. It's needed. You chew it with relief as the blessed numbness slowly familiarizes itself with your nerve endings. As you wallow in self-pity, you become aware of the beat of the place. It's organized, efficient, almost bureaucratic. Every morning, officials come through to visit each patient. They never check on how you are feeling. They examine your bandages, study your tongue, and take a note on a quipu, the knotted string device you saw the runner carrying. The knots are tracking the entirety of your medical history, the crime of kicking a godrock, the skull venting, and the foot carving that followed. You have become just a data point on a piece of string. This is the great paradox of the Inca Empire. On one hand, it was a brutal, authoritarian regime. In contrast, it was one of the earliest welfare states known to humanity in ancient times. The standard fact is this: the state guarantees that every citizen will have food, shelter, and medical care. No one in the Inca Empire was supposed to starve. The storehouses of the state, the coca, other freeze-dried potatoes, chuno, jerky, ciacharqui, and grains. If there were a drought in one area or a failure of the crop, the government would open the godowns and make the distribution of food. When sick, a healer sent from the state would heal you. The state will provide for you if you are too old or disabled to work. It was a society without hunger, without homelessness. It sounds like a paradise, but there was a catch. A vast, terrifying catch. This support system wasn't free. It was paid for with labor. Every disabled person has needed to pay a labor tax, the MITA. At certain times of the year, you would have to leave your home and work on a state project. This could be building a road, quarrying stone, or serving in the army. You could also be weaving fine textiles for the nobility. It was your duty to the Sapa Inca, the living god emperor. The state gave you everything, but it also owned you. It possessed your time, your work, and in a lot of ways, your life. The state demanded order above everything else. A rigid social hierarchy and strict laws governed the whole society in that text. Inca law consisted of just 3 simple rules. Don't steal, don't lie, don't be lazy. Do not steal, do not lie, do not be lazy. If one of these rules was broken, punishments were quick and brutal. The Inca's lack of action was not just a flaw in personality. It was considered a crime against the state. This is mainly because the Inca believed that the labor of the people belonged to the Sapa Inca. Lying was a crime because it disrupted the social order. The law states that everything belongs to the state, so stealing is a crime. Here's the quirky, or rather a horrifying tidbit that might amuse you a bit: punishments were meant to be brutal public spectacles. If you were caught stealing, your hand might be cut off. During the Dark Ages, if you were caught gossiping or spreading rumors, people would cut your tongue out. More serious offenses, such as murder and rebellion, drew even worse punishments. If you are unlucky, you might be thrown from a cliff or stoned to death. But if you are really unlucky, you might be locked in a dungeon called the Sankawasi. It was a dungeon full of snakes, pumas, and many delicious things to eat, like human beings. The intent was to make breaking the law so horrifying that it would throw the intended audience off and stop them. As you lie in your state-sponsored recovery bed, eating your state-sponsored soup, you realize you have been caught in the grip of terrifyingly efficient public health. Yes, they're taking care of you, but they're also watching you. The Kipu official is not just noting your health. He is noting your debt to society. You got injured because you were careless. You broke the unspoken rule of don't kick the sacred landscape. You have cost the state 2 healers, a guinea pig, a wad of cotton, and a gourd. You will have to work that off. Your future will probably consist of a lot of backbreaking labor in a state mine or on a public works project to pay off the costs of that hole in your head. There's debate over whether the Inca Empire was a benevolent utopia or a totalitarian nightmare. Was it something brilliant in design that engineered poverty nearly out of existence? Or was it a gilded cage in which personal freedom was wholly subordinate to state necessity? As you are realizing, the answer is that it was both. In that society, you might be saved by their advanced surgery. But you would have to do hard labor because you inconvenienced them. It would provide you with food, clothes, and shelter, but in return, you must obey it unquestioningly. You look around the temple. An older man with a hacking cough is being tended to. A young soldier is having his arm set by a skilled hand. A woman is being given herbs for a fever. Everyone is cared for. Everyone is controlled. You are safe. You are trapped. While the coca leaves numb the pain in your foot, they do not numb the chilling, encroaching fear that you are now a ward of the state, a tiny, broken cog in a massive, shimmering, and utterly merciless machine. Your recovery does not mean your body has healed, but rather that you are processed back into the system, and you get the feeling that checking out is not an option. In the week that followed, I ate a soup of quinoa, coca, and dread. The swelling on your foot is starting to reduce, and it is turning into a puckered scar. Your head is itching. You've been recuperating in the Tampu, the hospital, which feels like a warehouse for people rather than a hospital. You're fed, your bandages are changed, and you get tallied by the Kipu man every morning. You're no longer a patient, you're inventory. One day, a new kind of official arrives. He's not a medic or a bean counter. He's harsh, dresses in an immaculate tunic, and has the bearing of a person who has come to collect on an unpaid spiritual debt. He glances at your scar and then at your phylon string. He concludes you are fit for not release. You're being relocated. Your little accident has aroused some interest in you. Your situation, the offended waka, cranial ventilation, and foot whittling are apparently a textbook case of spiritual disharmony. You're a walking, limping cautionary tale, and they have just the place for people like you. You are going to a sanctuary in the mountains where you will be studying and worshiping. It sounds nicer than it is. It means that you are now officially property of the priest class. They don't let you walk there. You are carried on a litter, which makes you feel less like royalty and more like just a load. It takes days for the journey to ascend higher and higher into the icy air of the Andes. The Rocky Mountains around you are huge, and their immense size makes you feel a little small. Eventually, you reach a group of stone buildings that are perfectly put together, leaning against one steep mountainside. The air here is thin and holy, and cold, so very cold. You're taken to a building that is part tomb, part library. The walls have a lot of niches, and in those niches there are several silent and motionless figures. They are wrapped in fine cloth with their knees drawn to their chests and faces hidden. They are mummies. The atmosphere is cold with dry dust that smells of aged clothing and timeout. It is not a scary haunted house in any way. It is actually quite solemn and quiet and very unsettling archives of the dead. Your new job appears to be fixing the house for the live-in janitor of some desecrated dead. The priest who runs the sanctuary explains your duties. You will sweep the floors. You will offer chicha and coca leaves to the dead. You will talk to them. You will ask them for advice, because these aren't just dead bodies. They are still active members of the community. A widely accepted historical fact holds that the Inca practiced ancestor veneration in a way nearly unimaginable to us. The bodies of the rulers, mummified in the 3rd century, were taken care of as living beings. The emperor built them their own palaces and had servants to wait on them. They were brought out for every feast and festival, and consulted on all important matters. The Sapa Inca would literally meet with his dead grandfather on the council board. The past was more than just a memory. It was physically present at the dinner table, not eating very much. When you are alone with the ancestors for days, and it is cold and quiet, you begin to notice things. The fine clothes they're wrapped in. Some small personal possessions were packed into their bundles. A weaver's shuttle, a warrior's sling, a little golden llama. But you also notice other things. One mummy has a strangely deformed spine. Another has a skull that is thickened and porous. One of the Malkis belonging to a great general, brought out for a special occasion, has a withered and misshapen leg. You're looking at the ultimate medical chart. The irony and priceless aspect of modern science is that these superbly preserved mummies are a biological treasure. The dry and cold air in the Andes and deliberate mummification help to preserve not only bones but skin, hair, and organs, as well as genetic traces of ancient diseases. The health and diet of the Inca have been reconstructed in intricate detail thanks to the analysis of these mummies by archaeologists and paleopathologists. Scientists can determine a lot about the people who once lived there. They can tell what foods were popular, a lot of potatoes, corn, and quinoa, what parasites they had, intestinal worms, and what diseases they suffered from. They have tested positive for tuberculosis, arthritis, and nutritional deficiencies. They even examine the contents of their intestines to see how long they have been fed. It's the coldest of cold cases. You spend an afternoon gazing at the corpse of a woman who, the priest tells you, died from a sadness of the lungs. You look at her dried-out body and remember the healer back in the village, the one who examined the guinea pig's insides. She saw spots on the lungs. The current study of mummies like this one has revealed lesions on the lung tissue consistent with tuberculosis. The healer of the Incan people saw spiritual sadness. Today's scientist sees bacteria, but they both identified the same affected organ. It's a scary process of bringing two very different knowledge worlds together. You also notice the skulls. So many of them have holes. Healed holes. You see a skull that has a square mark on it, suggesting it has been trepanned. One has a big star-shaped crack because it is from a battle wound, and there is a little hole drilled beside it to relieve the pressure. The proof of that lies right in front of you. These people survived. They survived brain surgery. They survived horrific injuries. They were tough. The doctors put a lot of effort into the evil spirits, angry rocks, and beliefs, and they were effective. Historians continue to dispute the mummification methods applied to common people versus royalty. Did everyone get the deluxe treatment where they got to be eviscerated and cured? And the lower classes just were left out in the cold, dry air and let nature do the rest? The great difference in the quality and methods of preservation suggests that a hierarchy in the afterlife exists. Asking whether it required wealth for mortuary treatment to create the good-looking mummy, this is the debate concerning ancient mortuary social stratification. You touch the itchy scar on your scalp. You are now part of this story. You are a living record of their medical practices. One day you think you'll be another body in a niche. In 1,000 years, a scientist will scan your skeleton and notice a hole in your skull and a chunk missing from your foot. They will wonder what the hell happened to you. Your bones might reveal you ate a lot of quinoa. They will notice the stress signs from your near-death experience. You look at the silent, wrapped figures around you. They're not just dead. They're data. They await discovery, the eerie and silent truth of Incan medicine. And you are their newest and still breathing exhibit. Life among the dead is surprisingly routine. You sweep, you leave offerings, you have one-sided conversations with mummified nobles who have been dead for 300 years. It's a quiet gig and honestly, a step up from being actively mutilated. Your foot has healed into a gnarly, tender scar that makes you limp, a permanent reminder of your divine faux pas. The hole in your head is just a weird bald spot that's sensitive to the cold. You've settled into a rhythm. Then one day the rhythm is shattered. A runner arrives, a chaska gasping in the thin air, a knotted quipu in his hand. He delivers his message to the head priest. The news is not good. The Sapa Inca, the emperor, the living god, is ill. Not just a sniffle, not a stomach ache from some bad chicha. He is gravely, mysteriously ill. The sanctuary, a place of quiet contemplation, is thrown into a frenzy of activity. Priests are running back and forth, their faces grim. More coca leaves are being burned as offerings than are being chewed. The air, usually just cold and dusty, is now thick with the smoke of desperate prayers and the electric hum of panic. If the Sapa Inca dies, the cosmos itself could unravel. The sun might not rise, the crops might fail. The entire empire, held together by his divine will, could fracture. The diagnosis from the royal court in Cuzco is grim. The emperor is weak, feverish, and covered in a strange rash. The best healers in the empire, the ones who get to use the gold-plated tumis, are baffled. The royal diviners have sacrificed 100 of the finest, solid white guinea pigs. They've read the entrails, and the message is confused, contradictory. Some say it's a curse from a rival kingdom. Others say a powerful sorcerer is to blame. But the head priest of your sanctuary, after a long night of chanting and staring into a bowl of sacred water, comes to a different conclusion. The Apis, the great mountain spirits, are angry, not just the little local rock god you offended. We're talking the major players, the big ones, the snow-capped titans that scrape the belly of the heavens. They are displeased with the empire. The Sapa Inca's illness is not a personal ailment. It's a symptom of a cosmic imbalance. The gods demand a sacrifice. A big one, not a guinea pig, not a bowl of coca leaves. They want blood. They want a life. And not just any life. They want the best, perfect, unblemished, pure offering. This is the mainstream historical fact. The Inca practiced human sacrifice, a ritual known as Capac Hucha. But it wasn't a daily, bloodthirsty spectacle like some other empires. It was a rare, solemn, and incredibly significant event, reserved for times of immense crisis. The death of an emperor, a catastrophic famine, or a devastating earthquake. It was the ultimate offering to re-establish balance between the human world and the divine. The priests begin the preparations. The chosen sacrifice will not be a prisoner of war or a criminal. That would be an insult to the gods. The offering must be perfect. Often, the children of regional lords were chosen, and it was considered a tremendous honor for a family to have their child selected. These children were seen as the most pure and beautiful beings, the only gift worthy of the gods. They would be feasted, dressed in the finest clothes, and treated like royalty on their final journey. But for this particular crisis, the priest decides the sacrifice must be different. More immediate, closer to the angry gods themselves. They need to appease the spirits of the high peaks. And for that, they need a high peak animal. They need a llama, but not just any llama. They select a flawless, pure white llama from the sanctuary's sacred herd. This isn't one of the grumpy, baggage-carrying llamas you see on the roads. This is a 5-star, luxury, spiritually significant llama. It has been bred for generations for its perfect wool and its calm demeanor. It has never worked a day in its life. It is the llama equivalent of a pampered aristocrat. You've seen it around. It has a haughty, judgmental look in its big, dark eyes. It looks like it knows it's better than you. Here's the quirky tidbit. Llamas were not just pack animals and sources of wool. They were deeply intertwined with the spiritual and social fabric of the Andes. There were constellations in the sky that were seen as celestial llamas. They were sacrificed regularly, their blood used to anoint sacred objects, their fat burned as offerings. A herder's wealth was measured in llamas. They were family, and sacrificing one, especially a perfect one, was a huge deal. The entire sanctuary gathers on a flat, wind-swept plateau overlooking a dizzying drop. The mountains, the very Apis they are trying to appease, surround you, their icy peaks glittering in the harsh sunlight. The air is so cold it hurts to breathe. The priest, dressed in his most elaborate feathered regalia, leads the white llama to a specially prepared stone altar. The llama is calm, chewing its cud, looking bored. It has no idea it's the star of the show. The priest begins a long, monotonous chant, his voice swallowed by the vast emptiness of the mountains. He recounts the greatness of the Sapa Inca, the glory of the empire, and the transgressions that have angered the gods. He's essentially reading out a cosmic apology letter. You, the guy who started this whole mess by kicking a rock, try to look as inconspicuous as possible. You feel a weird sense of guilt, like this is all your fault. If you hadn't tripped, the mountain god wouldn't have gotten mad, the emperor wouldn't have gotten sick, and this beautiful, stupid llama would get to live another day. Historians still argue about the true purpose of the Kapak Hucha and other significant sacrifices. Was it purely a religious act, a genuine attempt to bargain with powerful, unseen forces? Or was it a calculated act of political theater, a way for the Sapa Inca to demonstrate his power and solidify his control over the vast, diverse empire by demanding the ultimate tribute from his subjects? When a regional lord donated his child for sacrifice, was it a pious honor? Or was it a way of sending a hostage to the capital to ensure the lord's loyalty? The debate is between genuine faith and ruthless statecraft. The chant ends. The priest raises a golden knife. With one swift, practiced motion, he slits the llama's throat. The blood, shockingly red against the white wool and the gray stone, spills onto the altar. The llama collapses, its legs kicking for a few moments before going still. His big, dark eyes are open, staring at nothing. The silence that follows is heavier than the mountains themselves. The priests examine the way the blood flows, the final twitches of the animal, reading the omens. They burn the llama's fat, watching the smoke drift up towards the mountain peaks, a fragrant message to the angry gods. You stand there, shivering, watching the life drain from a creature whose only crime was being perfect. You came here with a foot injury. You've now witnessed divination by guinea pig, brain surgery by hand drill, shamanic space travel, and a high-altitude llama sacrifice for the health of an emperor you've never even met. You thought your problems were medical. You're slowly realizing they're theological. And in the Inca world, there was absolutely no difference. The llama is dead. Blood cools on the stone altar, a dark, sticky offering to the silent peaks. The ceremony is over. Priests read the omens in the smoke of the consecrated herb and the patterns of the blood. The verdict is cautiously optimistic. The apists seem to be provisionally appeased for now. You might think the sky will open up, and you would hear a booming voice say, "Okay, we're cool." But you get the soul-sapping Andean wind and grim nod of satisfaction of the priests. You are dismissed. Go back to your duties. Talk to the mummies. When you limp back to the library-cum-grave, the last few months suddenly feel heavy on your shoulders. The pea, the guinea pig, the drill, the ayahuasca, the surgery, the llama, it's one never-ending parade of nightmare-inducing, magical, and, if we're honest, unsanitary nonsense. You can't wrap your 21st century brain around it. Stop trying to separate the medical from the magical. Here they are the same. They're completely, hopelessly entangled. You want to find the germ, the bacteria, the virus. They want to see the grudge. You sit down next to your favorite mummy, which is a grumpy-looking old lord you named Walter. Why was the healer so convinced your problem was a curse? What made the emperor's illness the fault of angry gods and not a communicable disease? In the Incan worldview, nothing happened by accident. Furthermore, one did not just become sick randomly. This was something that was planned. Nothing happened by chance. There was always a reason, and that reason was usually personal. The Incas thought that diseases were caused by supernatural forces, as per mainstream history. The angry gods, disgruntled ancestors, or the evil spirits could be these forces. But human malice was the most common and feared cause of illness. Some people felt that witchcraft wasn't as impossible as we make it out to be. Thus, a curse wasn't entirely out of reach, and with no more than an ill thought, someone was able to get sick from another. If you did fall sick, your number one question wasn't what illness have I caught, but rather whom did I tick off? Health was seen as a social and spiritual equilibrium. Sickness was a sign that this harmony had been broken. So, when the healer rubbed a guinea pig on you, she was not looking for the pathogen. She was looking for the signature of the person or spirit who was adversarial towards you. This is why your neighbor's muck was seen as more dangerous than any germ. A microbe is impersonal. A grudge has a motive. It's a targeted attack. Though your community helped keep you safe, it also contained an unhealthy spiritual web. That friendly farmer who smiled at you this morning? He could be secretly burying a toad doll with your hair inside to cause your crops to die. The weaver who complimented your tunic? She might be whispering a curse to give you a toothache. It was a world of pervasive, low-grade paranoia. They weren't really defending them. It was more of an official acknowledgement of the whole scenario. If a curer or diviner diagnosed your illness, **** or hampiok, as sorcery, they could be prosecuted. The trial will involve various rituals and divinations. If found guilty, the punishment was predictably horrific. A so-called witch's sorcerer and his whole family could face torture and execution, while their property could be confiscated. Also, their name could be wiped from existence. It was an effective way to keep the populace together as one. It was also a terrifyingly easy way to get rid of an enemy. All you had to do was get sick and point a finger. You think back to your own diagnosis. The first healer blamed an offended Waka. However, he casually remarked that it might have been a curse from one of the neighbors. He was covering all his bases. The possibility of human malice was always on the table. That kicking a godrock story might be the most probable version. If you had any enemies in the village, the diagnosis might have been different, and some poor potato farmer might be having trouble now. The Sapa Inca began to fall ill, or at least that was how the news spun it. He's not just a man. He's the center of the cosmos. The illness that afflicts him is an assault on the whole empire. Of course, the first suspect is a rival kingdom sorcerer. It's not epidemiology. It's geopolitics. Any plague that affected the Inca realm was not merely a public health crisis, but an act of war. Historians continue to debate about the extent to which this was a genuine belief or a tool of social control. The fall ill of a provincial governor, the execution of a local rival on suspicion of witchcraft, was the case real or a helpful way for the state to remove a politically dangerous subject? The system was ripe for abuse. The line was not clear between a shaman and a secret policeman. People did not want to be accused of witchcraft. Thus, they stayed quiet and kept to themselves. There was a supernatural power of terror that enforced the self-policing system. Out of the blue, a shiver comes over you that isn't due to the altitude. You look at the mummies lined up in their niches. Walter, the old lord, the general with the withered leg, the woman who died of sadness of the lungs. You had seen them as medical specimens, as records of a disease and a surgery, but now you see them differently. You wonder, who did they piss off? Was the general's leg wound a battle casualty or punishment from a jealous underling? Did a neighbor who wanted her award-winning llama blame the lady for having tuberculosis? Every healed wound, every chronic illness, every death was a story not of biology, but instead of a relationship gone wrong. Everything that was done to achieve healing, such as the pipoltis and the llama sacrifice, was done accordingly. The system was made for mending damaged bonds, mostly your relations with your neighbor, the mountain you were foolish enough to kick, and your ancestors. While we used herbs, surgery, and drills, those helped to heal the physical damage of the spiritual battle. They were managing the symptom, but the actual illness was always a grudge. You gaze at your foot that bears scars and your head that is bald. You are living proof. You are proof that in the Andes, gods and germs were interchangeable, that a neighbor's bad vibe could kill you, and that nap time was the most critical time of day. Your life has become a strange, silent routine of communing with the dead and trying not to limp too noticeably. The Sapa Inca, thanks to the llama's ultimate sacrifice, and probably just the natural course of his illness, is reportedly feeling better. The empire breathes a collective sigh of relief. The panic at the sanctuary subsides, replaced by the usual solemn, chilly piety. You're starting to think you might live out your days here as the weird, foreign mummy janitor. A fate that is both deeply weird and surprisingly peaceful. Then you wake up one morning with a toothache. It's not just any toothache. It starts as a dull, pulsing throb in your upper jaw, a minor annoyance you try to ignore. You chew your coca leaves on the other side of your mouth. But this is no ordinary ache. This is an ache with ambition. By midday, it has escalated into a sharp, stabbing, electric agony that shoots from your molar straight up into your eyeball. Every time your heart beats, a fresh wave of blinding pain crashes through your skull. The hole in your head, which had become a dull memory, feels like it's vibrating in sympathy. You have offended yet another god, and this one has decided to set up a forge inside your face. You try to hide it. You've had enough of Incan medicine to last a lifetime. You have no desire to see what they do for dental problems. Do they sacrifice a guinea pig's tooth? Do they drill a hole in your jaw to let the tooth spirit out? You don't want to find out. You swish with cold water. You press on your cheek. You chew more coca, desperately trying to numb your entire head into submission. But the pain laughs at the coca. It is a force of nature. By evening, your cheek is swelling up, and you can't stop the whimpers of pain. The head priest notices. Of course, he notices. He's a priest. His job is to notice disharmony. He takes one look at your swollen face and your eyes, wide with agony, and sighs the deep, weary sigh of a man who constantly has to deal with other people's spiritual failings. You try to mime that it's nothing, just a little ache, but a jolt of pain makes you yelp and clutch your face. The priest shakes his head. This cannot be ignored. A toothache, like any illness, is a sign of imbalance, and probably your fault. Again, he doesn't summon a healer. He summons the sanctuary's blacksmith. This is not a good sign. The blacksmith is a massive man with arms like tree trunks and a face permanently smudged with soot. He's a master of working with bronze, casting the tools and ornaments used in the sanctuary. He is not a dentist. He arrives carrying not a medical bag, but a small, terrifying bundle of his own tools. He unrolls it and your blood runs cold. There are no mirrors. There are no sleek, modern-looking implements. There is a pair of crude bronze pliers that look like they were designed to pull nails out of hardwood. There is a sharp, pointed awl, and there is a piece of twine. You are sitting down. The two burly villagers who held you down for your foot surgery are apparently on retainer for all your medical needs, because here they are again. They stand behind you, their hands on your shoulders. You're not getting out of this. The blacksmith tells you to open your mouth. You refuse. He gestures to your guards. They grip you tighter. You open your mouth. This is a mainstream historical fact. Incan dentistry was basic and brutal. While they had sophisticated surgical skills for skulls, their dental care was leagues behind. Mummies show evidence of severe dental decay, abscesses, and gum disease. Their diet, heavy in starchy corn and potatoes, and the grit from their stone-grinding tools, wore their teeth down to nubs. For most problems, the solution was to wait for the tooth to fall out or to pull it. And they didn't have Novocaine. The blacksmith peers into your mouth, his face uncomfortably close. He smells of sweat and metal. He pokes around with the sharp awl, and you scream as he hits the exposed nerve. That one, he grunts, as if he's found a loose stone in a wall. He has identified the offender. Now for the solution. He doesn't reach for the pliers. Not yet. That would be too easy. Instead, he picks up the piece of twine. Here's the quirky and utterly horrifying tidbit. One documented method for Incan tooth extraction was to tie a piece of strong twine tightly around the base of the offending tooth. Then you would wait. Over days, the constant pressure would slowly, agonizingly, loosen the tooth in its socket. It was a form of slow-motion DIY extraction. Sometimes they would tie the other end of the string to a door. It's the stuff of nightmares. But you're an emergency case. They don't have days, so they move on to plan B. The blacksmith picks up the pliers. You see your reflection in the polished bronze. A distorted, terrified face with a ridiculously wide-open mouth. He tries to get a grip on the molar, but it's slippery with saliva and blood. The bronze jaws scrape against your other teeth with a sound that will haunt your dreams forever. He finally gets a grip. You can feel the cold, hard metal clamped around the very root of your agony. He pulls. The pain is white. It is absolute. It is a supernova of pure, unadulterated agony that eclipses every other sensation you have ever felt. It's worse than the urine, worse than the foot carving. Your vision goes black at the edges. You thrash, but the villagers hold you like a vice. He twists. You hear a crack, a deep, sickening sound from within your own skull. It's not the tooth. It's your jaw. He's cracked the bone. He grunts in frustration, reg rips, and pulls again. This time there's a wet, ripping, squelching sound. The tooth comes out, a bloody, mangled root attached. He holds it up, a trophy of his violent dentistry, then tosses it aside. He looks back into your mouth, which is now a gushing mess of blood and pain. He seems satisfied. Job done. He packs up his tools and leaves, probably to hammer a bronze llama back into shape. Historians still argue whether Incan healers used any form of herbal anesthetic specifically for dental procedures. While coca was a general-purpose painkiller, some Spanish chronicles mention a mysterious herb of the tooth that could numb the gums or even make a tooth crumble for easier extraction. But no one has been able to identify this plant definitively. Was it a real, effective local anesthetic? Or was it just wishful thinking on the part of people watching these horrific procedures? The debate is between secret jungle Novocaine and no, it was just that awful. Judging by your current state, you're voting for the latter. The priest gives you a cloth to bite down on and a wad of coca for your now swollen and possibly fractured jaw. The immediate, stabbing pain of the nerve is gone, replaced by the deep, resonant ache of pure trauma. You sit there, spitting blood, tasting iron and defeat. You have survived Incan brain surgery, but you're not sure you're going to survive Incan dentistry. You have a hole in your head, a limp in your walk, and now a bloody, gaping hole in your smile. You have been comprehensively, systematically, and spiritually healed, and you are a complete wreck. You are broken. Your body is a roadmap of Incan medical history, a scarred foot, a trepanned skull, a traumatized jaw where a molar used to be. You've become a permanent fixture at the sanctuary, the resident unlucky foreigner, a living ghost haunting the halls of the dead. You've learned to chew on one side, to limp without complaining, and to accept that your life is now measured in coca leaves and quinoa rations. The days blend into a peaceful, if painful, monotony. You talk to the mummies. You watch the sun rise and set over the jagged peaks. You've found a strange, resigned zen. This is your life now, and then the world ends. It doesn't start with a bang. It begins with a whisper, a rumor carried on the wind by panicked messengers. Strange men have arrived on the coast. Men with skin as pale as the moon and hair on their faces like spun gold. They ride on giant, hornless llamas that are faster and stronger than any beast known to the Andes. They carry sticks that speak with thunder and spit fire. They wear armor that shines like the sun itself. Some say they are gods returning as prophesied. Others say they are demons, disgorged from the sea. The Sapa Inca, the one you indirectly saved with a llama sacrifice, is dead. But not from the mysterious rash. He recovered from that, only to die from another, even stranger disease that swept through the capital like a brushfire. A new emperor, his son, took the throne, only to die from the same sickness just weeks later. The empire is thrown into chaos. Two of the remaining sons, Huáscar and Atahualpa, are now locked in a brutal civil war for control of a throne that seems to be cursed. This is the mainstream historical fact. In 1532, a small band of Spanish conquistadors led by Francisco Pizarro arrived in Peru. They found a mighty empire, millions strong, but it was an empire tearing itself apart. The Civil War had weakened the infrastructure, divided the armies, and created a power vacuum that Pizarro and his 168 men would exploit with ruthless efficiency. The news that reaches your remote mountain sanctuary is fragmented and terrifying. Atahualpa has won the civil war. He has captured and executed his brother Huáscar. Now he is marching to meet these strange pale-faced men. The priests are in a constant state of divination, burning offerings, sacrificing hundreds of llamas and guinea pigs, trying to understand what the gods are saying. The omens are all bad. The smoke from the fires blows in the wrong direction. The guinea pig's entrails are dark and twisted. The sky itself seems angry. Then the absolute horror begins. It arrives not with the thunder of cannons, but with a cough, a fever, a rash. People in the villages below your sanctuary start getting sick. Not with the usual ailments that can be blamed on a neighbor's curse or an offended rock. This is different. It's a wave of sickness that moves with terrifying speed, consuming entire families, entire villages. It doesn't respond to the healer's chants. It mocks the shaman's ayahuasca journeys. The guinea pig diagnoses are useless because every single organ in the sacrificed animal looks diseased. The spiritual world has gone haywire. It's smallpox, and it is an apocalypse. This is the quirky, or rather civilization-shattering tidbit. The most effective weapon the Spanish brought to the Americas wasn't the sword or the gun. It was a disease. The people of the New World had no immunity to Old World illnesses like smallpox, measles, and influenza. These pathogens, which had co-evolved with Europeans for centuries, scythed through the indigenous populations with unimaginable ferocity. Some estimates suggest that up to 90% of the Inca population was wiped out by disease, a demographic catastrophe that has few parallels in human history. The empire didn't just fall. It dissolved. You see it firsthand. Refugees from the valleys start to trickle up to the sanctuary, their bodies covered in the telltale pustules. They are burning with fever, delirious, dying. The priests, who have an answer for everything, have no explanation for this. Their entire medical and spiritual framework is useless. How do you appease a god you can't see? A god that kills everyone indiscriminately? How do you fight a curse that blankets the entire land? Their system was built to address specific personal imbalances. It was not built to handle a biological holocaust. You, with your 21st century knowledge, know what it is. You see the pustules and you know it's a virus. But you are as helpless as they are. There is no vaccine. There is no treatment. All you can do is watch as the most organized, efficient, and comprehensive welfare state in the ancient Americas crumbles into dust. The roads fall into disuse because the runners are dead. The terraced fields lie fallow because the farmers are dead. The great storehouses are full, but there is no one left to distribute the food. The MITA system collapses because the entire workforce is gone. The state that owns everyone and everything is powerless to stop its own extinction. The sanctuary becomes a hospice. The mummies in their niches watch silently as the living join them in droves. There are too many dead to mummify. They are buried in shallow, mass graves. The air is thick with the smell of sickness and death. The chants of the few remaining priests are no longer confident and commanding. They are thin, desperate wails against a silent, empty sky. Historians still argue about the exact timeline of the first smallpox epidemic. Did it arrive slightly before Pizarro, traveling down the trade routes from Panama and destabilizing the empire just in time for his arrival? Or did it come with his men? It's a grim academic debate about which wave of disaster struck first. Either way, the result was the same. The Inca were facing an invisible, unstoppable enemy that was killing them on a scale they couldn't comprehend, even as a small army of heavily armed men marched into the heart of their shattered empire. One day, a survivor stumbles into the sanctuary. He tells the story of Cajamarca. He says Atahualpa, the new emperor, went to meet the pale strangers. He was surrounded by thousands of his finest unarmed warriors. The strangers read from a strange white object, then unleashed their thundersticks and their giant beasts. In a matter of minutes, thousands of Incas were slaughtered, and Atahualpa himself, the son of the sun, the center of the universe, was taken prisoner. The world has not just ended. It has been conquered. You look from the dying priests to the silent mummies. The entire complex system of belief that governed every aspect of your life here, the curses, the spirits, the sacred rocks, the cosmic balance, has been rendered utterly, tragically irrelevant. It was a system designed to explain a toothache or a twisted ankle. It had no explanation for a germ. And that tiny, invisible thing was more powerful and more terrible than any mountain god they could have ever imagined. The sanctuary is a ghost town. Smallpox has ravaged the world, leaving only a few people alive. You are inexplicably, frustratingly immune. The priests are gone. The blacksmith is gone. The two big local men who were our medical escort have gone. Only you, a couple of other muddled survivors, and the mummies that are just there and watching. The empire has been decapitated. Atahualpa, a prisoner, the Spanish, those terrifying, disease-resistant men, are now the masters of the world. You're no longer a patient, a prisoner, or a janitor. You're a survivor, adrift in the ruins of a civilization. The ordered, rigid world of the Inca has come to an end. You stand in its rubble. The survivors huddle together, leaderless, lost. They look to you, the odd foreigner who made it through the hole in the head, foot carving, and the plague. They don't see you as an unlucky tourist anymore. People view you as someone who has gazed into the void and hasn't fallen. They see you as having powerful magic. They start calling you Hampikameak, healer. You try to refuse. You're not a healer. You got too carried away in history, a history enthusiast like no other. You don't know anything about herbs or spirits. This is 2020 word paraphrase. You only have one medical knowledge, and that is that distilled fermented urine is not a good idea, unfortunately. But they don't listen. A boy was brought to you who fell while playing and got a deep cut in the leg. They look at you with desperate, pleading eyes. Someone is needed to restore order and clarify the matter. They need a shaman, so you fake it. You have no other choice. You remind me of my doctor and their narcissism. You remember the healer who first treated you. What did she do? She cleaned the wound. You take some of the precious remaining chicha and, with its alcohol, use it as a disinfectant on any cloth. You wash the boy's wound. It's a distant echo of the pee treatment, but based on a principle you actually get. Alcohol kills germs. Then you remember the poultices. You don't know which plants are which. The sanctuary's herb garden is overgrown and unkempt. Picking the wrong one could be poisonous. You take a stroll in the garden, trying to appear as if you know. You try to recall the smells, the textures. Do you remember the healer's assistant who was pounding leaves? You saw him do it a dozen times. You see a large plant whose leaves are always used on you as they make great bandages. Another possesses a powerful, clean smell that the healer always used to clean herself. It's a long shot, but it's better than nothing. In the Inca world, we would hear that it was tough to become a healer. It wasn't a casual career choice. A shaman in training must go through a long and arduous apprenticeship lasting several years. One of the most challenging things they need to do is memorize the pharmacopoeias of hundreds, if not thousands, of plants, minerals, and animal products. The purpose, location, preparation, and spirit of each plant were details the scholars needed to prove mastery over their powers. This served as education on plants, spirits, and medicine. While you were busy skipping the entire semester, I am getting ready for the finals at the nth hour. You mash these leaves into a pulp, as you saw the assistant do. You put the smelly green paste on the boy's wound and tightly wrap it with a clean piece of cloth. You have no idea if it will work. You try to give off an air of complete confidence, the same blank, rugged look you saw on the face of the first healer. You mumble words picked up from the chants, apparently spiritual. You are not practicing medicine. You are practicing authority. A shaman learned how to communicate with non-human beings as a part of his training. This wasn't just about trippy ayahuasca journeys. One thought that rocks believed in their own story. Likewise, rivers, plants, and animals. A healer had to learn to listen to them. The practice typically involved spending long periods of time alone in the wilderness. It might mean fasting and spending time with a rock or a stream for days to get to know it. You look at the giant peaks surrounding the sanctuary. You're supposed to be on a first-name basis with them. You can barely remember your own name at this point. Days pass. You check on the boy. You change his bandage by washing the wound with more chicha. To your utter astonishment, it's not infected. It's healing cleanly. The poultice didn't hurt, and the cleaning helped. You're good at pretending you did your first medical procedure. The boy's mother looks at you with awe and gratitude. Your reputation grows. They present to you an old lady who is choking terribly because she has the plague. You can't cure her, but you remember the coca leaves. Remember how we relaxed while breathing in that light mountain air? You show her how to chew the wad of coca she prepared for her. It doesn't cure the cough, but it eases her breathing, calms her. You're not eliminating the sickness, but instead bringing relief. It's palliative care Incan style. Historians still dispute shamanic education. Did they have a structured and formal education system, or was it based on intuition and divine calling? According to some sources, if someone survived a lightning strike, they were automatically labeled as called by the thunder god and destined to become a shaman. You experienced a different kind of lightning, a string of medical catastrophes and a disease. In the eyes of the survivors, you've been chosen. In your tormented life that improvises under the gun, living through the formal education versus divine intervention debate. Paraphrase this 16 words. You didn't go to shaman school. You got hit by the lightning of pure, dumb luck. You become the reluctant heart of this broken community. You carefully ration out the remaining food from the go-downs. You teach others how to clean wounds. You show them how to make the soothing coca preparations. You even find yourself talking to the mummies, not just asking them for advice anymore, but telling them what happened, giving them a status report on their shattered world. It's more of a debriefing of the dead than a spiritual consultation. You are a complete fraud. You're a fraud, a phony, a history nerd playing dress-up in the end of days. However, you are also the only one keeping this little pocket of humanity together. You are the Hampikameak. You are the healer. You have power over the past you don't even have a link to. I quote the following from the poem, The Grief That Dares Not Speak Its Name by Rania L. Mugammer. You find yourself in a new and awful world. You remember some things to say and have a great poker face. And for now, it's all they have. By default, you're a shaman, a reluctant leader in the quiet twilight of an empire. Your little mountain sanctuary has survivors who are looking up to you for everything. They look up to you for healing, direction, and to get up in the morning. Your days are a hazy drip of unprescribed drugs and sweet nothings. You are a fraud, but you are a useful fraud. After a while, one of the survivors, a young woman called Maida, whose husband was lost in the first wave of the plague, comes to you. She is pregnant, very pregnant, and the baby is coming. A new kind of terror grips you. This is not a clean cut. You can't wash it with corned beer. This is not a cough you can soothe with coca. This is childbirth. It is the new life born in a world synonymous with death. This moment is terrifying, beautiful, and deeply dangerous. In earlier times, before the plague, this would have been a festive occasion. Now you're in a cold stone hut with Maida and a bunch of other scared women and the dead man watching. You have no idea what to do. Your 21st century knowledge of childbirth, which comes from television dramas, includes boiling water, shouting push, and so on. This seems like a very inadequate understanding of a very complex process. You need the Incan playbook. Our midwives, the older women who had the secrets of the birth process, are all gone. You are on your own. You recall it well, the ritual more than the medical info it provided. For the process, you have learned that here, the process makes it, and what you do is as important as how you do it. You remember the priests. Everything they did was deliberate, ordered, and clean. So you prepare the space. You have the hut swept clean. You lay down the softest, cleanest llama wool blankets. You light a little smoky fire with some spirit herbs that you don't recognize but smell fine. You are setting the stage. You are creating a space of order in the midst of chaos. Childbearing in the Inca Empire was viewed as natural but spiritually charged, according to a common historical account. The mother was expected to be strong and stoic. She used to work squatting, hanging onto a rope/post so that gravity would help her to do her job. Women called Hampikameak were midwives who could help you with delivery, massage, herbal preparations, and of course, rituals to keep the baby and mother from evil spirits who came to feed on the vulnerability created with the birth. Maida is in pain. Her contractions are coming faster. She is frightened. The other women's eyes are asking you, "What now, healer? You will need to do something." You remember the Coca-Cola. It's the answer to everything. You get a tight wad ready for her, a gentler one though, not the knockout dose you got for your ops. You tell her it will give her strength. It's not just a painkiller. It's a sacrament. Putting the coca leaf in her mouth connects her to the many Andean women who have undergone the same ordeal. It's a physical link to her ancestors. She chews and her breathing steadies a little. The labor is prolonged. Hours pass. Maida is exhausted, her strength failing. It is a tough ask for Incan women to be stoic when the world has ended. She's crying, saying she can't do it. You need to intervene. But how? Some Spanish chroniclers describe how Incan midwives applied a peculiar technique, some will consider strange, but which happened in real life. If the labor was stalled, the midwife might find the child's father. It was believed that the husband's sin or hidden sin caused this difficult delivery. By admitting his misdeed or just taking a shouting atoning, he would spiritually clear the way for the baby to be born. It was like supernatural couples therapy with a time limit. Maida's husband is dead. You can't flog a ghost. But the principle behind the ritual gives you an idea. The blockage isn't just physical. It's spiritual. It's fear. It's grief. Her husband's sins are not your concern, but hers may be. You kneel beside her. You don't shout. You speak in a low, calm voice. You say to her that her fear is a spirit. It is a demon who is holding the baby back. You tell her she is stronger than she is. You tell her that her man is watching from the world of the ancestors, that he is waiting to welcome his child. Tell her to push the fear out, push the grief out. The baby will come right along. You are sharing the purest spiritual nonsense, but you do this with the complete authority of a guru. You're giving her suffering a story and a villain to fight. It works. Something shifts in her eyes. Determination replaces fear. She bears down with a renewed, ferocious energy. It might be just how we remember reading that other women support her in a squatting position. You are her anchor, her coach, her priest. Then, the moment of crisis. The baby is coming, but it's in the wrong position. It's a breech birth. A wave of pure, modern panic hits you. You know this is a life-threatening complication. In your world, this would mean an emergency C-section. Here, it's a death sentence. But the Inca were not helpless. Historians still debate the actual extent of their knowledge regarding surgery and childbirth. Although some experts say they could have done a post-mortem cesarean to save the child, concrete proof is lacking. The argument is on, were they sophisticated enough to do fetal surgery, or were they limited to external manipulations and prayer? The consensus leans toward the latter. They were experts at external version, the expert service of turning the baby in the womb from the outside. You have no training in this, but you have calloused, strong hands and a desperate memory of something you saw in an old history book. You have the other women hold Maida steady. You place your hands on her belly. You close your eyes and try to feel the shape of the baby. You push, gently but firmly. You are trying to direct a life to the right position with only a dimly recalled image and your own blind faith. You feel a shift, a small but definite movement. You push again. Maida screams, a sound of agony and effort. And then, with a sudden rush, the baby is born. It's a boy. He is frighteningly quiet, causing you to think for one terror-inducing second that you failed. This is breathing in gasps, a cry sown like catching air. It is a protest against the cold air and broken world he has just entered. It is the most beautiful sound you have ever heard. The women around you are crying, tears of relief and joy. You cut the umbilical cord with a sharpened piece of obsidian, as a real midwife would have done, and placed the baby on his mother's chest. You did it, you, the fraud, the fake, the accidental shaman. You have delivered a child. You have brought new life into the land of the dead. As you gaze upon the tiny, wrinkled baby, it strikes you that it may not matter if the rituals, beliefs, and spirits are real. What they do is real. They give strength. They give hope. They give a story to the people to live by when all other stories have died. You might have been a fraud at the beginning, yet in that moment, with a new life that you helped create against all odds, you feel like a healer. For a few weeks, there is a fragile, impossible peace. Your failure to literally ruin the birth of Maida's son has become a symbol. This little boy is the first child of the new world. He was born crying loudly, demonstrating that life continues. Survivors are rebuilding roofs and clearing fields, but with caution. You, their accidental shaman, are at the center of it all. You're still a fraud, but you're a fraud with a purpose. Your own medical history is now your textbook of terror. The hole in your head is your diploma. For the first time since you stumbled over that cursed rock, you experience a feeling that isn't panic or pain. It might be hope, and then one day you hear it. The sound of metal on rock, the clank of armor, the unfamiliar, guttural sounds of Spanish. They have found you. A small patrol of 5 conquistadors, headed by a grizzled, bearded man with a crucifix and murder in his eyes, rides into your sanctuary. They are not impressed by your mountain refuge. The plight of the survivors does not move them. Take care and remember that they are just not that into you. They are looking for one thing: gold. They shove you aside and storm into the buildings. Their first stop is the tomb, the resting place of the mummies, your silent companions, your dead colleagues. As the sacred niches are ripped apart, a brutal and sacrilegious glee overcomes the Spanish soldiers. They tear the mummies from their graves, throwing them onto a stone floor like bags of dried leaves. They rip apart finely woven fabrics for hidden treasures. They remove the golden death masks from the faces of lords, delicate ornaments hanging from their ears and from their chests. Walter, the grumpy mummy, is stripped of his golden earrings, the mark of his nobility, with a dagger. You watch, frozen in horror. This isn't a search. It's a violation. The Spanish appetite for gold was insatiable, or so the mainstream historical narrative goes. They viewed the breathtaking artistic accomplishments of the Inca not as priceless cultural treasures, but rather as raw bullion. Over the years, they melted down tons of elaborate statues, masks, and ceremonial objects, destroying art and history in the process. The Sapa Inca Atahualpa offered to fill a room with gold and 2 more with silver for his ransom. The Spanish took the treasure and executed him anyway. One of the soldiers lets out a whoop of discovery. He has discovered a colorful burial package belonging to a high priest who died about 100 years ago. He cuts it open and the contents spill out. There is a special kit that comes with the same gold jewelry. This will contain several polished golden hollow tubes of various lengths, perfectly crafted, a bulb-like object that resembles a syringe, and other strange, unidentifiable equipment, all made from pure shining gold. The soldiers gather around, baffled. They hold up the golden tubes, peering through them. They squeeze the empty syringe. What is this? A toolkit for what? A young soldier with a cruel smirk mimics actions in a mock show of service. An injection, but not into an arm. He aims the object at his bottom and pretends to pump it up and down. The other soldiers roar with laughter. This is it. The fringe, spooky, and bizarre conspiracy theory. The pre-Incan moche had drums with pottery showing ritual enemas, the latter often with psychedelic substances. While direct proof of the Inca is more disputed. They were not simply weird. They were weird in a certain baffling way. Golden enemas. This is probably the most luxurious product you could get for a ritual you don't want. The soldiers are still laughing at their loot, whilst also adding a golden kit. The pile is obscene. Artists fashioned actual corn in gold. The stalks were made of pure gold, and the kernels and tassels were in silver. There are golden llamas that seem incredibly real, like they might spit at you. Turquoise and shell are used to adorn plates, goblets, and masks. It is a king's ransom. In the Inca cosmos, the sun was made physical. To the Spanish, it's just weight. It's just money. Historians still argue with each other vigorously about the purpose of these ceremonial kits. Were they really for ritual enemas, to introduce the hallucinogen called vilca for a faster and more intense spirit journey? Were they advanced medical instruments for administering herbal treatments inside the body? Or were they entirely different, perhaps fancy ceremonial straws designed for sipping chicha from a common container? The squabbling could probably win a gold medal even with no prize. It is a combination of archaeology, anthropology, and pure speculation academics in a heated conflict if a solid gold tube was for a high priest's colon, bloodstream, or cocktail. You watch as they drag it all out into the central plaza. They built a furnace. The delicate golden butterflies, ceremonial knives, and the faces of the gods are smashed. They feed it all into the fire. In the process, you look on as 1,000 years of art, belief, and cosmology melt into a single shimmering, formless dilute gold. The golden enema kit, possibly a means of communication with the gods, dissolves alongside the countenance of the sun god, which in turn dissolves next to the small, perfect llama you formerly placed by Walter's niche. It all becomes one, a meaningless, glowing sludge. The Spanish pour the molten gold into crude ingot molds. The sacred has been made profane. The complex has been made simple. The spiritual has been made material. They load the heavy, ugly bars onto their horses. They turn back and look at the ruined shrine, at the desecrated mummies, at the few wild-eyed survivors who have been permanently traumatized. And then they ride away, leaving behind the stink of a lost world. You stand in the silence, in the wreckage of the tomb. The Spanish are gone. The gold is gone. Walter and his pals lie strewn on the floor, with hollow eye sockets fixed on the ceiling. It's cold and thin again up here, but this time, the hallowed hall is replaced by a deep, cold echo. The baby cries. It was a sound of hope. Now it just sounds small. You survived. You did the pea poultices, the guinea pig autopsies, the skull drilling, the foot carving, the bad dentistry, the plague, the conquest. You're still standing. But the world you survived is gone, melted down for parts. The belief system was complex and beautiful. It was based on everything from angry rocks to the cosmic balance, which was so delicate that a kicked stone could shatter it. The angry gods of the mountains and shamanistic space flights might seem cozy and familiar insanity. They are a little more naive than the cold, complex logic of a man with a gun and a lust for gold. Upon exiting the broken tomb, a view of the valley comes into view. As the sun sets behind the snow-capped Apis, it looks as though it is bleeding, showering it with blood and fire. They look the same as they always have, but they're silent now. Perhaps they were always quiet, and the Inca just knew how to listen. As you see your foot with scars, you touch the dent in your head. You are the last living example of a lost world, a deformed museum of its strange and terrible medicine. You were standing there as a fake shaman in the ruined world, always thinking about the first day. The fermented pea. The ultimate irony? The Spanish came looking for El Dorado, the city of gold. They scoured a continent for it. The Incas already discovered their own rivers of gold without the Spanish knowing about it. They stored these liquids in earthen pots, poured them on tourists.